Hey Tubes, wanted to show you a little hack that I've done for Powerwheel batteries. The original battery charger is a wall wart style, and it has no feedback to tell you if the battery's charged. There's no float ability in the actual charger, so meaning that once the battery comes up to full charge, that it kind of stops charging, and then it will just kind of trickle charge when it needs to. They'll basically just sit there and they'll nuke a battery. So I'm at the process point of starting to replace these batteries, because you can see this battery is about 4 years old, and they haven't had the best life charging wise. So what I've actually started to do is I went on Amazon and I picked up these little trickle chargers. These are Black & Deckers. Now when I bought these for, gosh, like $7 or $8 each. I think I bought 10 of them at the time, and I just checked on Amazon again. They've jumped up in price. I think they're like now $10 each or $12 each. I can't really recall. But what I did was it came with a whole bunch of different ends. So what I've done is I've actually cut the end. Find where it is now. I've cut the end and I've actually soldered in an original Powerwheel battery charger end. And then I can just go ahead and snap it in. Better yet, my kids can do it. And that's the important thing, is that they can become a little bit more self-reliant on charging the batteries and whatnot. But what will end up happening is you then get feedback as to if the battery's charged or not. Like, I just plugged this one in and it's showing that it's a solid blinking light, or solid light rather than a blinking light. Try that. So that basically would mean that it's charged. And see how it will just once in a while flick off and flick back on? It means it's just doing that trickle charge to it, maintaining the battery. Whereas another battery that I've had on here for a little over 24 hours, you will notice it is continuing to flash. So I know that this battery right here is no good. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how I build new batteries for about half the price of a regular Powerwheel battery, and you get more amp hours out of them. So let me get set up, and I'll turn you guys back on. Alright guys, so here's my bad battery. What we're going to do is we're actually going to get this connector out of there. So what you're going to need is a couple different tools. Screwdrivers. Possibly a hammer. A pair of wire cutters of some sort. Wire strippers. Alright. Now, some of these are held in real good. Other ones, not so much. Just kind of take your time. Just pop the top off. There we go. Now, all we're looking for is this connector and the wiring. So, we'll get underneath here. Pop it up and out. And then I'm going to go ahead, cut, and the white wire is my positive. Notice they even are nice enough to mark it positive for me. Now this little device right back here, this is actually a circuit breaker. The battery that I built, I should say, my prototype one, did not have a breaker on it. And what I've found is I've actually just got an inline fuse on most of the Powerwheels. And for what my kids do with it, I generally don't ever have a problem with them overheating them or anything like that. And I think there's only been a couple of times where the fuse is actually blown on them. But what you can do is you can probably Google that part number right here, PSM 1234055C, and order a new one of those breakers. I don't believe this is kind of epoxied in there. I don't know if there's actually a way that you could actually physically pull that out of there. But just keep in mind that you do want to have some kind of protection in your battery. So these are the batteries I buy. ML1512, 12 volt, 15 amp hour. The Powerwheel batteries themselves, I want to say the original ones are somewhere around 9 amp hours. 9 to 11 seems to ring a bell. I think in 2018, Powerwheels upgraded it to 12 amp hours for all their batteries. But this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be using a 15 amp hour. I've used different size batteries, different types of batteries, and they all have their pros and they all have their cons to them. This one here is similar in size. It's a little bit longer. It's a little bit narrower, and obviously you can tell the height is a little bit different on them. But I find that these fit into the Powerwheels the best. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have it so that this sits right here. This positive terminal comes over and attaches right to this positive terminal here. Okay. And then the negative goes right here. So what we're going to need is we're going to need soldering iron. I have just a set of alligator clips, just real simple ones that, you know, piece of copper wire and a couple of pairs of alligator clips that were soldered on. Some solder. And this stuff. This Loctite marine adhesive. This here I buy from Home Depot. It's I don't know, $5-6 for it, but works really good. You know, it sets or cures in 24 hours. But the thing that I like about it is that it bonds to this plastic really good and this plastic really good. I do take one extra step and I clean this plastic with some brake cleaner. And I'll show you that when we get to that point. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove these protective pieces. I've got a little bit of heat shrink tubing somewhere here. Is that the right size? That's the right size. And you could use liquid tape. You could use hot glue for all intensive purposes. But we just want to have some kind of insulating value. Okay. I use this stuff I bought off of Amazon. I'll show it to you here. This has got the sealant inside of it. It's cheap. I mean, it's really, really cheap. I want to say it was somewhere around $10 for this whole package. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that, they're gonna sock it to you, and it doesn't have the sealant inside of it. So just gonna go ahead and strip these off. I don't need a lot of wire stripped. Okay, and actually I'm gonna hold off on doing the black terminal for now. I'm just gonna give it a little twist, and I'm gonna set that onto here, just like so. Don't forget to put your heat shrink on there. I've done that a couple times. That's pretty frustrating when you forget that. So there's that. I am going to use this alligator clip just as a little bit of a heat sink to prevent the shrink tube from shrinking up on me. So I want to make sure there's plenty of solder. That's a good solder joint. Let that cool off for a couple seconds. Now, one way that you can tell is if you have a good soldering joint. I learned this back in, geez, I want to say junior high school. Is that if you look at that solder joint, you will notice it has a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not totally flat, dull looking, and it's not like crusty looking. That's a good solder joint. If it was dull and crusty looking, that is actually a, they call it a cold solder joint, and it just has no strength to it. So now I'll be able to glue that down just like that. Take this wire here, figure out approximately what my length is going to be. I'm going to call that my length. So now a normal Powerwheel battery costs somewhere in the ballpark of $50 on, online. I don't, Toys R Us is now closed, so you can't go there anymore to get them. And I think Walmart's about the same price. I haven't really priced them out ever, but I think they're about $50. So all in all, if you have all the tools and equipment, you're not in it for very much. What did I say? Battery is like under $20, and if you decide to do the little hack with the power charger like I showed, then you're in it for $40. My kids have pretty close to 15 running Powerwheels. So, we go through batteries fairly quickly around here, charge-wise. Longevity-wise, last time I bought batteries was 2014. So that's not too bad. 4 years out of a set of batteries. And I forgot my heat shrink. All right. So let me get this reset with some heat shrink on there, and soldered nicely. Let that cool down for a couple seconds. Move this clip over. Go. All right, let's resolder this. heat shrink over. See that side right up. Now, a couple different schools of thought with heat shrink. You can use a propane torch, you can use a heat gun, you can use the tip of a soldering iron, really doesn't matter. As long as the tubing shrinks down, that's really all that matters. Now, there's going to be people on the internet that have all their own comments and ideas and theories and everything like that. And I'll tell you what, if the manufacturer tells me that I can use a heat gun, a propane torch, a Bic lighter, I'm going to go with what they say. And, like I said, they say that you can use any of these methods for their material. So, this will glue itself a little bit. Okay, get that there. Alright, good enough for now. Alright, so now one last step that we have to do is we have to clean this surface. Let me go get some materials for that. Alright, so here's what I've done. I'm just taking a couple 2x4s, set this battery up on a couple 2x4s with a little bit of space in between. That way I can take one of these quick clamps and I can clamp this all down. I'm going to use a little bit of brake cleaner, and brake cleaner is basically acetone, and acetone is basically lacquer thinner, so you could use any of those. And what I'm going to do is just clean this surface, and what actually ends up happening is, you can see, it softens the material just ever so slightly, and it just gives it a little bit more of a tooth. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the adhesive, and it doesn't take a lot. And what the instructions say is if you're bonding two impervious surfaces together, such as metal and plastic or plastic and plastic, you want to set the material down, lift it up to give it a little bit of moisture in there from the air, because it's air cure or moisture cure, and then set it on there. And then what I do, take a little clamp, try to get it straight onto it. Okay, and then I just let it sit for, I'll move these up here, because this clamp is just a little bit different depth-wise. And then I'll just let it sit there for 24 hours. So that's that. That's how you build a new Powerwheels battery that's got more amp hours and better longevity. So if you guys like this type of stuff, what happened there. If you guys like this type of stuff, please rate, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, have a good one.